We're rolling, but we want to do an intro
let's do
first,
an
and then
intro.
we're gonna back up.
Yeah, we'll get back to that.
Okay, we go ahead. Do an intro.
All right, so I just say my name, welcome to Bond Park. Marshall says his name, and then you say yours. And you can call yourself whatever you want. You can say owner and proprietor of Ethel's Lounge, all-around good guy, whatever you want to say. Okay? Doesn't have to be true, Glenn. Ready? Welcome to Bond Park. I'm Sarah Geidlinger.
And I'm Marshall Ward.
And I'm Glenn Smith from Ethel's Lounge.
That's perfect.
Welcome to Bond Park.
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 This episode of Bond Park is brought to you by Encore Records and its charming owner, Mark Logan.
So charming.
Marshall, what was the first record that you bought at Encore Records?
It would have been in the summer of 1987, and it would have been Neil Young and Crazy Horse, Life.
That's about the time I think I would have been going to Encore. 6th grade, I think, is when Emily Hirth and I started jumping on the One Queen South and heading to the old location on Queen Street to ditch all of our babysitting money and pour it into the local economy.
And I would have been there about 3 times a week for many, many years and missed many high school classes to hang out at Encore Records.
Best record store in town. Find Encore Records at 301 King Street East in Kitchener near the Farmers Market.
And meet their charming owner,
Mark Logan. Is that how we're leaving it?
Yeah. Are you a charity, nonprofit, or Indigenous governing body that needs to modernize or adapt your organization to respond to COVID-19?
The Government of Canada recently launched the Community Services Recovery Fund to support Canadian community service organizations.
Together, Waterloo Region Community Foundation and United Way Waterloo Region Communities have $2.8 million to distribute across Waterloo Region, with additional funding available through Red Cross.
Applications are open until February 21st. Learn more and apply at communityservicesrecoveryfund.ca. You can also call Waterloo Region Community Foundation or United Way for more details. Glenn, thank you so much for joining us on Bond Park.
Well, it's good to be here so far. A little nervous.
Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. We were so excited to have you, accept our invitation to come back on the show because we enjoyed speaking to you about the Mel Brown Music Festival.
Right. That was
immensely.
It was great, and it worked out. We just did an event about a month ago at the museum in an attempt to raise some money for the Mississippi Blues Highway plaque that is coming to town, which is a big deal. And a bench with a bronze statue with Mel sitting on the bench playing a guitar, which is looking like it'll be in Victoria Park. We're not sure about this. But the importance of the Mississippi Blues Highway plaque is in that there's probably a couple hundred of them in Mississippi, and it's one of their prime tourism things. I don't know the right word. Things. Attractions. And you can go through the entire state of Mississippi, which is rather huge. And these plaques are more than just up and down Highway 61. They're all over the state. And it will tell you the story of Muddy Waters or B.B. King or Howlin' Wolf or Bo Diddley or Etta James. And this is the very first one that'll ever be in Canada. which would be in Kitchener. So it was a big deal for that they had agreed that the strength of Mel Brown's career, who was from Mississippi, was important enough to them that they would put one in Kitchener. So it'll be the first one in Canada. I think that's really awesome.
When you invited us into your home earlier this year to talk to you about Mel Brown and the relationship that you had. Tell us about your relationship with Mel Brown.
Mel Brown, I had a blues bar in Kitchener on Queen Street, Pop the Gator. It opened in 1989. And from my experience in blues bars, whether they were in Canada or in the United States, I had picked out the style of club that I wanted to have. And I didn't want to have a bunch of white guys in Canada imitating blues guys in the States and calling themselves a blues band or a house band. And I am very, very, very big in my life about authenticity on all different levels, on music or posters or people or visual things. And for me to do something with a blues bar that had an authentic look and sound, I needed a qualified musician, blues guitar player that could handle the parts. And that's where Mel Brown had all the tools, and he could do it. So I invited him up. The lucky part here is he said yes. Because he could have said no, and that was the end of the story, which would have been sad because the story, the Mel Brown story, is intertwined in this community now through, hundreds of other people that all have their story of Mel Brown, whether through music or as a guy that lived on Cameron Avenue or in clubs or other people or teaching music or just an all-around guy that would never have that story unless he came to town. So that was his decision. I gave him opportunity. It was up to him to take it or not. So which led to being a very, very successful run at Pop the Gator. Mel Brown held down the band leader spot, which led to bigger attendance, bigger names that would come play the club. It's like, drafting Connor McDavid to your team. Instantly more people are going to come out, and the respect level goes up, and other players want to play on that team. It's the same thing in building that. And I understood that, and that's exactly where I was headed for, and that part of it all worked out.
I grew up with sitcoms like Alice, right, which takes place in a diner. And so I already had this very romantic idea as a kid of how there can be these special places in a town, in that case, some town in the U.S. Do you remember your earliest vision of Ethel's and what that would look like as you'd make that transition from Pop the Gator to a different kind of business?
Well, as a side note to that, when I was halfway through my Pop the Gator run, I opened up a corner bar at the corner of King and Sterling in Kitchener called the Circus Room. And
Lots of memories at the Circus Room.
And I was young and thought I had tons of energy, which was the big deal. I was just recently single, and I now understood the difference between a nightclub and a corner bar, which are two completely different animals. Some people try to create two of them into one, and it doesn't work. And I now wanted that idea of a corner bar to be realized. And where we went at the Circus Room, it was only licensed for 50 people, and it was a perfect spot for that. And so I was at the Circus Room a very short period of time, I'll say like 2 years, when Pop the Gator, through the lease, was winding down. I wasn't happy with the Circus Room as far as what it could look like long range. Out of the small size of it, you would have maybe made a living. You wouldn't have never gotten ahead. And so just as I was shutting down Pop the Gator, this came up here at Ethel's as a location, as a possibility, because the KFC people had moved out because they were told by head office you need a drive-through, and you couldn't do a drive-through here, so they were leaving. Otherwise, they never would have left. So it was a timing thing at that time. Improve upon the idea of a corner bar from the Circus to Ethel's, and I was just freeing up time by no longer having to be at Pop the Gator anymore. So that's kind of how it all worked out together. I also used to live right across the street at the building, Applewood Hair or Dentistry there. My parents owned the building at the time, and the entire bottom floor was my apartment. And when this was a KFC, I would come here all the time and walk around the back of the building here, sizing things up, measuring things, getting an idea how I'm going to change it. So I was doing reconnaissance work.
And creating a vision at the same time.
Creating a vision at the time to see if this would work or not, because there was some walls and things in certain areas that would have had to come out. And if they couldn't come out, this wouldn't have worked. So I've had two things in my life. I've always attempted to have some vision, and I've also had amazing luck. So I've been very lucky, and it's all worked together quite well. It makes me look like I know what I'm doing, but sometimes I don't. So.
Sounds like my life, Glenn. Totally sounds like my life.
But as long as you're trying, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
As long as you keep trying, it'll work out. Gretzky didn't score every time he was on the ice, and he still went to the Hall of Fame. So, as long as you're trying and working on whatever your goal and your vision is, you'll get it eventually.
I want to do a quick backtrack. We're obviously recording in Ethel's, in my favorite corner, which everyone says is their table. Whenever I ask somebody, they say this is their table. I'm like, well, that's my table.
We're sitting close to a CKCO TV sign that is full of nostalgia.
And the shrine,
nostalgia, yeah.
The shrine to the Colonel, which you saw today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Colonel Sanders, yeah.
But when we spoke to you in your apartment, thank you so much for inviting us. It's like a museum, your apartment. It's absolutely gorgeous. And we met your lovely wife. But you
current wife.
Your current wife, that's right.
Okay.
At time of recording.
He's still married?
Oh, yeah.
This time of recording.
Funny you ask. Why would you hear? She's at home packing while I'm in here doing an interview.
So you told us sort of your path, right? Like you didn't just fall into Pop the Gator and just get a job there and start running it. You told us about your school, your life as a student, as a youngster, the work that you were doing before you got there, and all of this matters. All of this matters in the story of how you got here, sitting here in Ethel's, running this place. So tell us a little bit about that.
Ooh,
Oh, my food is here. So talk for a long time because I am going to inhale this food and no one else gets any.
Wow,
Thank you.
That's just for you?
Yep. None for any of you.
My goodness.
Thanks, Shannon.
You've been living in a cave for a few days?
Kind of. I haven't really eaten much in the last few days.
As a kid,
I don't know who that plate's for.
As a kid, is this what you were picturing for your life?
I'd have to go back and remember, but I was picturing what I was picturing not doing was not working at a factory. I was not working 9 to 5. I was not, out on a picket line every 5 years yelling and screaming as a union guy. Try the pizza. It has pineapple on all this week here at Ethel's with hot peppers.
Pineapple on pizza where it belongs.
So a life of normalcy is what I was attempting not to have. And I also have a thing where I think you have two choices in life. You should either, if you have kids and you're a parent, be really good at it. Be there for your parents, be there for your kids and your parents, and do a good job doing it. By not having kids, which I never did, it frees up a lot of time to be creative about things. And whether you're doing it just to be creative or if you're creating something on a business end or something else, but at least you're giving it a stab. And I think that's how I felt. You should one or the other. Be a great parent or get out there and do something. And so I took that approach. And because, again, I had the free opportunity to do it, I've always had a backup plan. I've always had a plan B or a plan C. And also during all of these things, I had a day job. So I was never going to be broke. And I always had, if it fell on its ass, oh well, I still had a day job. So that, like I say, Circus Room might not have worked or Pop the Gator might not have worked. But leading up to the Pop the Gator through Legion shows and the Hoodoo Lounge, I was always doing backup work or, like I said, the word reconnaissance before. I was doing, snooping around or kicking the tires and realizing the times had changed. In the 80s when I started out, liquor laws were different. Attitudes were different. And I was always learning and exploring and, looking at the future and seeing how generations change. Kids that are 10 or 11 years old, 10 years from now will be running things. And you're always gearing for the future. Knowing old people with old ideas and, old thoughts are going to be gone someday and you'll be rid of all that stupidity and negativity and you can move on with the smart kids. So it's all kind of a big, long answer how I was heading for something other than working at a tire plant or something, and I just couldn't do it.
Were there smooth transitions where, when you open Ethel's, you've made a lot of friends at that point, right? And you have a lot of knowledge now, right?
More, but yeah, you're learning every day.
I've heard it said the first year of a business can be very, very difficult, right?
I've heard that.
Yeah. What did that first year of Ethel's look like?
But probably because I've had a bad attitude about everything else, I assume everything I'm going to open is going to be a huge home run. And some of the pictures behind you are some of our opening night, and there's probably 200 people in here. It was packed. It was packed through some of the different people I knew. Some of the people who worked here brought their friends. And I just assumed it was just going to work. And I always had faith in the idea when I looked at Ethel's as space size, location size, parking, patio. I always knew that parking would get more and more and more important as the city got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it worked out that way. And it was just, I said there was everything that was going to work about this as a location. That's how I thought it was. And 30 years later, it seems to be working. So, and I don't have to be working at Bud Automotive making car frames.
The one thing that I find really funny that you shared with us when we spoke to you last was people have this, to use the word again, people have this apocryphal story about Ethel's that it's been around longer than 30 years. Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, sometimes it's like when I had the circus room and I put a garage door in the front, which was a big deal at the time, only because there was a frame there exactly the size of a garage door. And it had only been there a month or so, and people would come in and say, yeah, my dad used to get his car worked on here because they saw a garage door. It's like people get stuff stuck in their heads, and they don't want to, it's hard to shake them. And so sometimes you don't try and get it out of their heads, you encourage them because it's a great story, I had a girl come in here recently, and she was trying to convince me that her mom had seen the Grateful Dead at Bingham Park years ago. And they never played there, and I've never heard this before. But there was no shaking this from her memory, so I said, yeah, it was probably a great show, let it ride.
Who's it hurting, really?
Yeah.
With my mouth full of food here. Who's it hurting?
She was happy. And,
I saw this list of bands, Gary Stewart of the Twist, the Vid, Flying Dog Revolution, posted on his Facebook a little while ago of all these bands that came to town within the span of a month. And the one I had never seen that came to town was Queen. I had no idea that Queen played. That was on this list of bands.
Maybe in Toronto.
KW. Wow, it said.
See, this is my Grateful Dead moment here with Marshall. I don't think Queen ever came to town. I think they only played Toronto once. But.
Yeah. Glenn,
but if that's what you want to remember.
When, with something like Ethel's, do you see momentum building when it comes to building a customer base, building a certain loyalty? I grew up with the show Cheers, watching Cheers, and I thought Cheers was the most beautiful idea ever, that you have these familiar people behind the bar and the same kind of core group of people who come and are regulars. Is that a real life thing?
Right, you have to build it. The number I was told is you need like 2,000 regulars to make a business work. In this case, because some of them you're only going to see once a week, once a month, twice a week, but you need turnover constantly, and it has to be like Groundhog Day every day. And that works with some people because they come in and they see, oh wow, you've got the same waitress for 20 years. You got the same guy in the kitchen, dishwasher for 20 years. And they feel comfortable enough that they look at it as a career, not something I'm going to do until my real life starts. And so you constantly build on that. Makes life easier, makes life comfortable, makes life where you go in and you know what you're going to get.
Always.
If you come in here and I take something off the menu, it's like a huge problem. I'm like, sorry we had to do it. And now I have to explain to everybody that comes in, why did you just take that off the menu? I go, well, it wasn't very popular. And, oh, yes, it was. I had it every time I came in here. You have to put it back in the menu again. And then people ask, could you just make it in the kitchen just for me? Which you do. And then they go, look what I got. I could get special food. So.
I remember the moment when we were younger when I realized that we could order the salsa on the nachos instead of ordering the individual ingredients. And I was like, fuck yeah, now I can get another beer.
Look at that.
Can you get me a bowl of that dill soup?
Sure.
That was a special, though.
I have people come in and drink the Raja sauce. You know, it's
The
like
Raja.
crack.
Oh my gosh, so good.
So, but those are secrets that as I went into bars in the 70s and 80s in the States, and I looked, and I was always learning, or I was paying attention. You know, Jimmy would come in and they put a bottle of Bud in front of him, you know, because Jimmy always came in every day at 4 o'clock for a bottle of Bud and a shot of whiskey or something. And then you'd watch it as it changes, and it changes as the bar shift would change and the customer base would change and the night crowd came in, which are younger. And then, you know, and you go into bars in New York State that are open 24 hours, and you walk into a bar at 6 in the morning just as the down in Buffalo, the Trico windshield wiper crew was coming in off shift and getting loaded before they went home. And you're like, the laws in Ontario were so antiquated. You know, it was only until the 90s you could have a beer on a golf course, you know. And I was always looking at that and just trying to learn it flow, learn about, you know, people in general. People only have, you know, certain needs, and when they go a certain place, they want comfort, they want to be respected and not thought of as another number, and they come in here and, you know, and you make an atmosphere that you hopefully that, you know, you would feel that if you were somewhere else you were getting the same respect. And I don't know, to me it's easy, but everybody should be acting like this. But maybe I'm attempting to lead by example, I don't know. But
The late Neil Peart has photographed lots of buildings across the U.S. that were once restaurants, bars, clubs, whatever. And he always says that he's always reminded that was somebody's dream. And he writes about it with a certain sense of sadness that it sits there now. Are those sad days when something like Pop the Gator comes to an end, or the Circus Room, is that a sad time, or what are the feelings that come with that?
Not really. Pop the Gator was a phase that was an 80s thought that was now closed in 94, and it had run its course. The same with understanding restaurants, it's understanding nightclubs. People say, why don't you do that again? I go, well, 99% of the bands I had are now passed away. Mm-hmm. You know, why don't they open the El Macombo like they did in the 70s? Well, because all those bands from the 70s are gone. It's like saying, let's open the Crystal Ballroom at the Royal York Hotel and get big bands again like during the war, because that era is gone. I think we touched on this before, you know. That's why understanding nightclubs is different than a restaurant or a bar that can stay the same forever. But I was only sad once at the Circus Room. After I had sold it, moved here, it had changed hands a few times. And on a Friday at the Circus Room, when I owned it, you couldn't get in because it was packed. It was packed solid.
I remember. Yep.
And I went in there once on a Friday. I went down because my wife was meeting somebody who was the bartender. It was her brother. And they were outside having a cigarette. And on a Friday, I was sitting in the Circus Room all by myself on a Friday. And it was the oddest flashback as to, why am I sitting here? I don't own this place anymore. I'm the only person in here. And it was like, I have to get out of here. It's freaking me out.
And something isn't working.
Yeah, it was a flashback to, wow, why am I wasting my time sitting here? Circus Room, when I'm done with something, I move on, and, you know, and that's that. The reason you know, it's like selling a house. You know, you're selling a house because you found a better location or a bigger house or something nicer or something else. You remember the house you lived in, but you don't go backwards, you know. You don't want to live in that crappy apartment you lived as a student or something, you know. You're moving forward, so... But you always learn. I mean, I learned a lot at Pop the Gator. I learned a lot at the Circus Room. So, but regretter, nah, who's got time for that?
It's a waste of time.
Sure.
I remember it was very obvious when the Circus Room was yours and then when it wasn't. But going back as far as Pop the Gator, I want to repeat this. It's been on other episodes of our show, but Pop the Gator was one of the reasons why I had a fake ID. I wasn't a teenage drinker, really. I was kind of a nerd, but I had that fake ID so I could come and see live music.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Cousin Matt, for making me a fake ID with cutout numbers from the phone book.
Learning all these tricks now.
I don't think it works anymore.
Much like your home, Ethel's is kind of like a pop culture museum. You know, it has captured different eras around here. Those old wrestling posters you have, Where do you get those posters? Like, I mean, if you think about the fact that they're here and they've survived this time, somebody's been taking care of them.
Right. I mean, I'm always looking for that stuff. I had another guy that owned a bar in town years ago, and he says, "Where do you get all this stuff?" He thought there was a warehouse somewhere full of this stuff, and you just go in and go, "Oh, I'll take that. I'll take that." I go, "No, everything here is one at a time." You go to garage sales or, auction bids or people coming in say, "Hey, I got this old table." So all these tables were acquired. And you have to take the time, the knowledge to learn what you're looking for and then go out and find it. And hopefully you find it, but it's out there. And it's always like a culture. Antique people or it's a whole other subculture of people that are out there that know stuff or into stuff, like the old motorcycle racing poster behind you there from New Hamburg, that it ties then local connection to here. All the music posters that are on the wall wouldn't work if they're in another town because they're all from Kitchener, Waterloo. So it makes people feel, it ties the past to what's going on. And then young people come in and show their parents, "Look at this, Dad. You told me about, seeing Steppenwolf at the university. Here's the poster, Ties generations together. That's what we do here at Ethel's.
That's the tagline.
We tie generations together.
So though you've had live music, I think the slogan, is it still the slogan? It used to be something like...
no live entertainment,
no
one
live
TV.
No live entertainment,
that
one
line
TV.
was really on our liquor license.
Was it?
The line was printed on our liquor license because when we first opened up here, the neighbors were afraid that I was opening a nightclub because I had done that at Pop the Gator. I was attempting to convince them I wasn't. They didn't believe me because they thought I was a liar. And they said, "Well, what kind of a bar is it?" It'd be like a local bar. And they said, like a sports bar, whatever that is. I said, "No, we'll probably
whatever
just..."
that is. Yeah,
I said,
agreed.
"We'll probably just have one television." So the stenographer for the liquor board was writing this down. No live entertainment, one TV. And so when we got our license, it said that right on it. So we printed T-shirts up that said that. And
it stuck.
It stuck. Then we got a bunch more TVs, and I got more trouble with the liquor board and had to go to another meeting. And the neighbors hated me, and I took about 500 locals and customers from here to the meeting. And then the liquor board saw what they were up against, and they said, "Okay, let's just move on." And
don't get these angry. Don't get these Ethel's regular patrons and angry drunks. Upset about it.
It's just part of the story, I guess.
But there's never been a focus on live music here. Sorry, Marshall, were you about to say something?
No, go ahead.
You just keep eating there.
Oh, I'm almost done an entire pizza myself, and I'm feeling very comforted, happy, in my zone.
You're getting a glow in your cheeks.
Oh, I am. It's grease. It's grease. And I feel great.
Well, that's a long history of grease from KFC here. And
but no fryers, right? And I love that there's no fryers here.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, that was more of my bad attitude, where I said, I looked at the restaurant industry, which I knew nothing about, and I hated the pomp and, all the sous chef and the chef and, the whole BS of the whole thing. One yells at the other one and everyone treats everyone like crap. I go, "Yeah, we're not going to be doing that. You have to buy brand new this equipment and you need this or you have to do that." And I go, "Yeah, I'm not buying into that game." So I said our kitchen was so small, and if I'm going to just get deep fryers and do chicken wings and cheese sticks and all the other crap that every other restaurant does, I might as well just open up a Casey's chain and forget this whole independent thing. So instead of doing that, because I wanted to be proud of the place, I'll just do fresh food and get away from the whole deep fryers. And now I don't need grease traps that are smelly, and I don't need a bin out the back full of dead grease or flies and birds go in. And I just said, we're not doing it. Now, in the 90s, that was a little bit of ahead of a time before people were eating healthy.
Totally.
And but the times caught up with that. And now people really appreciate it, where it's, we're not serving a whole bunch of deep fried crap. There's a lot of other places in town, if you need that, and everyone does occasionally, you can go find it. So we're not one of them. So.
And it led to you getting a bunch of those Eat Smart awards, right?
Yeah, who would have thought, huh? And they didn't want to give me a bunch of them because I had given them such a hard time at the time about their smoking ban that I was, persona non grata on the. We're not giving him awards because we don't like him. Like just recently, we were told that we can't have a representative on the BIA. I said, why? They choose who goes on, but I guess because sometimes we speak our mind, we can't have a representative from Ethel's on the BIA. So that just happened yesterday.
Moment of silence for that.
Oh, well, we want a bunch of ass kissers on there and pat each other on the back and tell each other they're doing a great job. I guess that's why it doesn't work. So,
You heard it here, folks.
when you talk about something having its run, I can see how music venues certainly have a run, and but there are you must have seen how there are like long-time family-run businesses, maybe a breakfast diner or something in town, that it just there's an end to it at some point. Like are you able to always see why something no longer or is at the end of its run?
Well, a lot of times is one generation, I don't want to use examples, but like an Angie's Kitchen or something. And those are fine people, and I don't want to talk disparagingly of them. But what happens is one generation goes, you know what, my parents worked so hard at this, and I have no desire to get into this line of business. So as the parents get older and older and older, and they go, we want out of here, and no one's interested in buying it because they see the work involved. And then it becomes a real estate thing where the property becomes more valuable than what the business is worth, and it's gone, and that's the thing. I know there was a bakery in Kitchener years ago where the guy had a very successful bakery, but he had to get up every day at 2 a.m. to make baked goods and to stay there in the morning and sell them, and his wife, and they worked their asses off. And he was trying to sell the bakery for a few $100,000, and that was just an equipment which was probably well worth more than a lot of that. He couldn't give it away because no one wanted to get up in the middle of the night to make baked goods and struggle in a bakery. So I don't know, I'll probably keel over here someday, and what happens after that will be up to everyone else, so it won't matter. But I don't know, I don't have an end run, or I don't have an end thought as to how this is all going to end. I don't really care. I have zero desire to retire. I'm getting ideas all the time as to, I could do that, but
Retirement sounds incredibly boring to me.
I always get a kick out of people coming in here, and it's people I don't see very often or barely know. They go, yeah, I just retired. Now,
I'm like, are you in your 50s?
Yeah, to them, what they're really saying is, I made enough money, I don't have to work anymore. To me, what I'm hearing is, you're just a braggart that has quit because you couldn't make it, or
you have no interest.
Yeah, you're a boring person anyways, and
to
no
all
one
you
will
young
hire
retirees,
you.
we're not interested.
I retired, so what are you going to do with your life now? Nothing.
That sounds like a nightmare to me.
Drink too much and golf. Well, I'm really impressed. See ya. Who cares, and retire. I don't know. Never thought of it.
You would have lost some friends over the years, musicians and loyal customers, and they must kind of they live on in your heart. But do they live on here at Ethel's for you? Like you can kind of go back and picture
We have
things.
a wall full of faces that used to come in. Everyone has a remember so and so that used to come in, and remember, if you were 40 when we opened, and you'd be 70 now. So it's time moves on, and I'll have my picture in that pile someday, like other people. And you constantly are attempting to recreate or keep moving on as a business, as much as we don't change anything. Getting back to we can't,
which is what I rely on, though.
Yeah, and that's the history. You're making a business, but along the way, you're making friends and a history, and you look at how Ethel's looks to me through my eyes or to other people. I used to go when I was a very young kid in the 60s. I'd drive by at the corner of Herb and King there, the Waterloo Hotel, and there was a sign out front that said circus room. And I'd ask my parents, I go, who goes to the circus room? Is that like people that work in the circus, that's where they go on the off hours or something? I had no idea. And then 20 years later, as they were selling that place, down in the basement was that sign, the circus room sign, which I bought for $25 and reconstructed and ended up opening that bar, the circus room, which also told me that how easy it is to get a name for a bar. Find an old sign and call it that,
Do you want to talk about the Ethel sign? Or are you legally bound not to?
No, it was the same thing. That Ethel sign was probably built in the 60s. It was a black nightclub in Detroit, very famous neighborhood bar that through time, much more like a Pop the Gator, it's a black nightclub that held a couple hundred people, that its time had come and gone. And Detroit as a city had changed dramatically. And it was just hanging on an abandoned building at that point where I was just getting ready to open up here. It also, aside from a cool name, cool sign, it fit on the post out there perfectly 8 feet wide where the bucket used to be on top when it was a Colonel Saunders here. So when they took the bucket off the top, that left the reader board in there, just there, and I put the sign on top. So it all fit.
Creative and industrious.
And again, very lucky that it fit and it worked and everything came together. So that was a very lucky thing. The guys that were fixing the sign at the time thought I was crazy. They said, this is the dumbest thing, that you're going to put all this money into this sign, new neon, new transformers, get a crane here and welders and painters. And why are you putting all this money into this old sign?
Because I have an art print in my house framed that is somebody's artistic interpretation of the sign in the front of your restaurant.
Saying you wouldn't have done that with just some crappy old sign.
That's right.
And so that goes back to the character of the sign.
That's right.
The vintage of the sign, and the story of stealing, liberating it in Detroit and bringing it here, which is a whole other story unto its own. And it's part of the
lore of Ethel's.
The lore of Ethel's, and I guess it's just part of the deal.
You shared with us your most memorable kind of concert memory at Pop the Gator when we interviewed you for the Mel Brown Music Festival and Symposium Series. There must be nights here at Ethel's. Maybe it could be like around Christmas time or maybe New Year's, or just, I don't know, a certain celebration that for you just lives on in your heart as being just the most magical kind of evening I'm picturing.
Yeah, there's certain times, usually around, 6, 7 o'clock at night, as it just getting dark. In the fall, it's already dark at this point. There's not many people in here. And I remember sitting in here, and Ethel's looked basically like this. Some of the posters have changed through time, but 30 years. And I was sitting, I just finished putting one of the last posters on the back wall near the pool table. And I was sitting here all by myself. And I still hadn't convinced anybody, even the people involved, that this was going to work. They're like, yeah, well, we'll see. We like you. Here's our money. Probably never see it again. And I sat here by myself, and I had a drink, and I was thinking, this is going to work. I knew it in my soul. I said, this is going to work. So occasionally, it's like a personal little thing. I'll be sitting at the bar, and the place will be on a Friday night, packed elbow to asshole, and it'll be a whole lot of people in here. And the great thing is, over 30 years, I'll be in here Friday night now, not know anyone. They don't know me, and I'm just some old turd sitting at the bar having a beer, and some old creepy guy with all the other old creepy guys. And they'll be in here, and I'll look, and I go, look at all these people. They weren't even born when I had the thought to open this place, and they're enjoying it. It's just things like that give me a little smirk.
Do you want to recap or retell this famous Mel Brown story from Pop the Gator?
Well, it was Albert Collins.
It was Albert Collins. There you go.
Yeah.
Do you want to start from the beginning?
No. Albert Collins, I have pictures that I took of the Omacombo in the early 70s. Albert Collins was a big deal. And if you're into blues, you listen to Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and John Lee Hooker, and it isn't long before you get to Albert Collins. And that I went down and saw him in Toronto was huge because he never played in Canada much. Our dollar was always in the toilet. Nobody booked him. So that I had the opportunity in 85 to book him in a Kitchener Legion Hall was like, it was like getting Ringo Starr or something to play. It was a huge event for me. And that he then came and played Pop the Gator a second time. That he came down the stairs. He played. It was an old trick that guys in Texas played in the early 50s. They'd have a 100-foot guitar chord. Buddy Guy does it now, but different guys did it. And he would go off through the crowd or go down the street. and he wanted a donut across the street at Cafe Mozart, and I was trying to convince him that, and he was playing. The band upstairs was playing. It was like horns and everything else. You could hear them, so he was playing along. But now he's downstairs. They were upstairs, and the place was packed. And he wanted to get a donut. And I said, going across the street because buses and everything were running, it might be bad for your guitar cord. And just at that time, Mel Brown pulled up. So he took his guitar off and handed it to Mel. Now Mel now had to play in his style, just playing guitar. That, you know, it would sound like somebody else wasn't going to work. You had to sound like Albert Collins, but Mel Brown had such talent, he could do it. And while Mel is now walking back up the stairs slowly playing, Albert Collins is over getting a big, you know, Dutch Kriller with extra cream or something on it, loving every minute of it. And when Mel walked back into the crowded room, people freaked out because one guitar player left and a different one came back. So it was
Without missing a beat.
without missing a beat. The band didn't even know. They're all looking. I remember hitting each other, pointing over at Mel at the door. Look at that! So it's little memories like that. So
Am I correct in saying this? You haven't written your autobiography. Nobody has made a documentary just about you, right? Are you okay with your legacy living on through these
Rumor.
through rumors,
Rumor
and,
Speculation.
Bullshit.
and places, and providing, you know, countless people with endless entertainment and fun?
I think there's a lot of people out there with a lot of bigger talents and have done way more than me that could be writing a book and don't. So for me to sit down and write something you could sit on the outhouse and read as a joke and have fun with old stories, yeah, but I'm not nearly pompous enough or full of myself enough to think that I can sit down and write a book of, you know, something local and how to do it in KW, fine, but, you know, it's just, I was a pretty lucky guy along the way, and at any moment it could have snapped, and if this location for Ethel's wasn't here, could be living somewhere else today, and it's just one of those lucky things that happened, but no, I don't want to sound like a dick here, but I was visiting Dan Aykroyd about a month ago, and we're sitting in his farmhouse, and it's just him and me, and I'm thinking, here's a guy that did movies in the 70s, aside from the guy that wrote, you know, Coneheads, Ghostbusters, Blues Brothers, on and on and on and on and on, doesn't have a book about his life, which would be amazing. Yeah, I don't think I'm quite ready to be writing any books yet.
You mentioned earlier about, you know, when Marshall was asking about past regulars or people that you've lost along the way, and you said something very quickly and kind of jokingly, well, your picture will be on that same memorial wall one day, right? Which I don't like to think about because I like seeing your smiling face around here, Glenn. But what do you hope for Ethel's for the future?
Well, that it's here. You know, they're not going to build any shrines out front or anything, you know, but that people enjoy it. You know, and anytime you spend some money and you walk away and you go, that was value, that was awesome, I can't wait to go back. How many restaurants you go into? You go, how was it? It was all right. How was the food?
Don't get the chicken.
Yeah. How was the waitress? She's a bitch, you know. I don't know. Drinks are expensive. Ethel's, you know, here we still have a 20-ounce pint glass for beer. In this day and age, they've now conned you into believing 16 ounces is a pint. Yeah, that's some salesman somewhere. And owners are going, think people will buy that shit? Yeah. Give them a 16-ounce glass. Okay.
They won't have a choice.
Right. And then they wonder why people don't go there anymore, you know. No, it's just a business at some point. You want it to sustain and move on. And COVID was a bit of a test for a lot of people, how to do that, because, you know, I was at my age and had gone through that before, so that's a learning curve. Would have been a learning curve. I'm glad I wasn't in my 20s and 30s opening a restaurant during that, because we wouldn't have survived. It was nice to hear people say, oh, I knew you guys would open again. I think, well, we're never sure, you know. But they said, oh, yeah. And then people say the nicest things like, oh, if you ever close, like, I couldn't take it. You know, I met my husband there. We had take our kids in all the time. We couldn't deal with that, you know. And that's heartwarming to think that you had an impact on somebody's, you know, life or growing up, or they were gracious enough to spend their entertainment dollars here, you know. And I appreciate it. I don't take any of it for granted.
And I've been coming here, Glenn, since you opened.
The real geniuses of Ethel's are walking by.
Yeah, right there. Do you want to, we could talk to anyone you want to.
He wouldn't.
I've been coming here since pretty much after you opened. And, I was here a few weeks ago on a Thursday night after a movie with some friends. And we barely got a table. It was packed on a Thursday night, so you're doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's seeing new faces and the turnover and times. People would always say when we first opened, oh, you're ready for all the students? You're going to be inundated with students. Wow. We weren't. We were never a student place because kids look at this as a corny old, what's this shit? I don't know. Who are they? All the old guys, They smell weird. And that's just me. And they didn't get, now they're getting it more. Mm-hmm. We get more of third, fourth year students who go, oh, this is cool. As the times change and as they become exposed to things on TV, Food Channel, open up a lot of people's imagination, different antique shows on TV, collectors and things like that. People go, oh, I saw that old clock at Ethel's. It was just like that or something. So the times catch up. And then they realize that, we've been here forever and people appreciate it. Like I say, I don't take any of it for granted and I appreciate it. I'm so proud that I'm from KW. Yeah. That I'm able to live in this town, be born in this town, and probably be here to the end of the line, that make a living and, make a life in this town. And this KW has been just, everything to me. And all the people that, as we talk about different places, have supported those places. Without their support, I'd be lost. And they supported the Blues, and they supported Corner Bars, and they supported Ethel's. And, and I appreciate that every day, At night when I don't feel like coming out and I can sit at home knowing Ethel's is there and I don't have to be here every night, late and to lock the door up at 3 or more in the morning or something. So I appreciate all the support that KW has given me and the businesses I've been behind. So that I really appreciate.
And you've always had good teams. You've always had great people working here.
Yeah, and you build that that's a whole other segment about how to attract quality people and how to keep quality people, and it's how you manage them or mismanage them. And I learned from watching other people, yelling and screaming doesn't work. Showing people respect, you'll get respect back. And let people do their work. Show them the job and tell them to do it. If they do it, pat them on the back, say you did a great job. So leaning over every plate of food that comes out of there and inspecting it before it could go out or anything is, I'm not going to be here to do that all the time. And they've done a great job, so leave them alone.
And actually, another quick note, you told us when we were talking to you last time, I think we were standing on the terrace of your building, looking out over KW, me, Marshall, you. We're looking out over KW, and you said something to the effect of like...
Don't push me?
No, that would have been funny, though.
Yeah, for you.
You said something like, people think they have to leave to do life. Like, they think they have to get out of KW to make a life for themselves.
Or other towns are like, they say, I couldn't leave town fast enough.
Yeah.
Usually because they leave their bad mistakes and their bad memories behind, and then that's how everyone ends up in Anchorage, Alaska. They're as far away as they can get and recreate a life of however they want to imagine their next life. Until they make the same mistakes again.
It's like that Harry Chapin song, you can travel on 10,000 miles and still stay where you are, right?
Right, the same thing. So I made a lot of mistakes. That's a great thing about life. You usually live just long enough to realize that you have enough time in your life to apologize for all the stupid shit you did when you were younger. So, but KW has been a blessing, to me in a huge, huge way. So. I'm here. You're stuck with me. Sorry.
Sarah and I are super excited for season 4 and all the amazing shows we're going to bring you.
We're also really excited about our secret side podcast called An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. And it's not actually about wrestling.
No, it isn't. It's about a lot of things.
Mostly life.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of laughter.
Yeah, there's tons and tons of laughter.
We're incredibly proud of it. So please check it out on all your streaming platforms. An unscripted, I can't say it. Can you say it?
An unscripted spectacle, wrestling with wrestling. Meow, 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 meow.
Bond Park is made possible with the support of the Waterloo Region Community Foundation, the Kitchener Public Library, our local sponsors, and you, our loyal listeners.
We make this show in Sarah's kitchen. If you like it, please rate and subscribe.
That helps us get the word out to more listeners.
The Bond Park theme song is by Alan Lung.